No, what the heck? Stacey always has a good
I know.
one.
Well, I'm usually doing something this weekend. I didn't do anything, so nothing eventful has happened.
So
to
only
me.
eventful questions happen.
The questions come up because something.
So what
eventful.
were you doing when you asked some of our last questions, Stacey? It's a good question.
What is happening in her life that she has all these questions?
Exactly.
Stacey always doing something.
No, I'm always having conversations with people, so things
So you talk
come
about
up.
pegging?
Pegging.
Pegging.
What is
What?
pegging?
Oh, God.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Never mind.
So pegging is
Oh, okay.
when a woman.
You brought it back around.
Pegging is when a woman puts on a strap on and like does her man from the back. So apparently,
It should
asked-
never be. It should never be.
It shouldn't be. a thing.
apparently there's like certain type
Shouldn't
of
even be a
pleasure.
term.
Nope.
Yep. Pleasure for the
It's in
male.
the dictionary now.
It is. It's in the Urban Dictionary.
So sad.
Yeah. So
what
I
do
was
you do on the weekends?
no.
Right. Oh no! Hold on. But she would love to.
Here's the
She
thing.
would love
Oh,
to. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah, she
say
would
that.
love
I just said my answer
Right.
wouldn't be no.
to. Mm.
I would ask
if
a
her
few
partner
questions.
asked her to act, like, would you like to do this? It wouldn't immediately be no. There would be
Right.
some follow-up questions like why,
But
some
she
stuff.
also said she wants to know what her stroke game is like.
Right. You know how like have you ever like I don't have a penis. I've never had one, and I was just curious as to if I would know what to do with it if I had it.
That is very concerning for me as a man.
It's I don't know.
Sad.
Maybe
It's,
no.
yeah. The check-in questions typically aren't that, but it was definitely a good one.
That
It
was
was
a good
eventful.
one. That was
Yeah.
good.
That happened like 2 episodes ago.
Is it hard to like answer all these like with truth and honesty? Like
No.
y'all just
No, it just it just
Wait
comes
for this.
naturally.
Because my answer to that question was, what the fuck are we talking about?
They're
what?
not. They're not normally all like this though. Like most questions are pretty.
No, it was all normal.
Wait, the first 10 minutes of the last episode that we just posted were the most awkward 10 minutes that I've ever watched on my life.
Was it? Was it awkward?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Ugh, it was so funny.
Mm.
All right. Well, I'm Stay Sorry,
Jessica Lola.
King Kong P.
and we are Houston. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. So we're not saying it together. That's the thing.
I feel like we're past it at this
I feel
point.
like, are we going to ask him to say Houston? I'm just
you
saying.
should definitely say Houston. I'm just saying.
Houston, I'm just saying.
Wait for love, and you're gonna get there. Sometimes love takes a long time. Wait for
His
Yes,
voice is
he-
sexy.
Yeah, I know. He could be like the person, like the little
Yeah.
thing that
Oh,
comes
yeah.
up on our podcast.
He's definitely
Houston, I'm just saying.
The world where Houston says things.
Super
These
sexy.
guys are just saying.
Yeah.
We are. It's the same, you know. It
works.
happens.
It definitely works.
So we do have a guest here today. It is Mr. Rob. Last name.
Kowalski.
Kowalski.
Yeah, I was gonna mess it up. I was
Oh,
like,
that's fancy. Kowalski's is just a fancy last name. It just reminds me of something off like a mob movie for some reason.
It's actually the most common Polish name.
Oh,
it's like
okay.
Smith in Poland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's very
Yeah.
very
Interesting.
common
Or like
Polish.
Hernandez in Mexico.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just want to make, 2 analogies.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So first off, thanks for having me on. I'm grateful to be here. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I was in Houston, or I'm in Houston for about another 4 or 5 days, and I messaged you guys because I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have a productive meeting while I'm here, and it looked like a fun place to come. So I was born and raised in Baltimore. I like to refer to myself as a reformed bad boy. I was a stripper and a nightclub promoter in Maryland.
Do
in
you have any
Baltimore.
videos from back in the day?
I think there may
Can
be
we
some.
search any videos on YouTube right this second?
You can definitely find me on YouTube, but it won't be what you're looking for. I don't think. We'll talk about that tonight. So yeah, so I was like, I was the busiest stripper in Baltimore for most of my 20s. I was in the phone book, worked for all the entertainment agencies. I was the biggest nightclub promoter in Baltimore. I ran the nightlife in Baltimore, DC. I was just kind of a bad person looking back. I mean, I was selfish. I liked being me. Life was a party, lots of women, alcohol, drugs. Like,
This is in Baltimore.
this is in Baltimore. This was my life. This was my income. It was, it was like something it was like Magic Mike kind of crossed with Studio 54. I don't know.
Gotcha.
So, and it was fun, life was a party. But when I was 27 years old, I I met the Lord. I met Jesus, and didn't know he was real. Was not looking for him, but had this kind of conversion experience and did this really radical 180 where I, realized I had to make some choices if I was going to walk this path, because then I was all of a sudden aware of the truth. I like to say it was like Neo when he took the red pill. All of a sudden I was like, oh snap,
Eyes are open.
yeah, eyes are open. I got to make some hard decisions now. So I quit stripping, quit promoting.
The money gone.
Yeah, exactly. Still gone.
But I'm on this path.
Broke up with my girlfriend. I was abstinent for the next 6 years.
Shit.
Yes.
That's a long time.
Yes. 6 years. So I went, and you can imagine how hard that was, because I went from being the most promiscuous guy I knew
Right.
to being abstinent now for 6 years. So really lonely time, to be honest. Very, very felt like an alien in the world. I was going to church on Sunday, but didn't really relate to church
Question.
people. Sure.
The last 6 years, or is this like separate?
So this was the first 6 years I got saved. No, listen. First 6 years I got saved. Then, like I said, going to church, looking for people to hang out with, didn't relate to religious people, found myself staying in a lot by myself, going to the movies, trying to avoid trouble, thinking sooner or later God's going to send me a wife and reward me for my good behavior. Did not happen. Eventually started going back out to the bars again with my old friends, started picking up my bad habits one by one, having sex again, drinking, doing drugs eventually, and really kind of ended up back to where I started from, but it just didn't feel the same, because now I knew the truth, so I was guilty, basically. So
yeah, you had a taste of something different.
Yeah.
Right. That felt more pure.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I walked it for a while, but it was such an unmanageable lifestyle.
Yeah, you went cold turkey.
I went cold turkey, and the world that
you went cold Jesus.
Yeah,
Cold Jesus.
We have to coin that. So I kind of made a mess, and then I rededicated in 2011, and I went through the exact same period for about a year where I was renting Redbox movies every night by myself, knowing, okay, I can't go to the club. Can't hang out with a chick by myself, because that's going to lead to sex, which has been my kryptonite.
No, you said.
And so I just stayed in a lot by myself, and I was like, all right, this isn't a long-term strategy. I know how this played out last time. So I basically started organizing social events, kind of for selfish reasons, but also because I was trying to help my friends whose lives were starting to fall apart from the bad decisions they had been making. And they weren't trying to go to recovery, and they weren't trying to come to church with me. But they needed something. I just couldn't get them to come. So I was like, well, I'm going to start organizing social events for myself, but also for them, because I feel like if I can get them to a healthy place and get my healthy friends there, magic would happen. And that's exactly what started to happen. And we started volunteering a lot. We started organizing service events. And through that, I really saw people's lives change. And then I eventually started a nonprofit called CityFam, which is based out of Baltimore, but is why I'm here in Houston, is to help this chapter get off the ground in Houston. Anyway, when I rededicated, I know you asked me about, you asked me about the book, but you asked me about my story. So the last 6 years and 9 months, with the exception of one mistake, and I always have to mention that was about 4 years ago, I've been abstinent for the last 7 years also, because... Yeah, so 6 years.
Right.
I think 6 months is a long time sometimes.
But
he's like 7 years.
But what I want to say is, from living at the extremes. So I went from being super promiscuous to being abstinent to being promiscuous again to again being abstinent. Somewhere along the way, I really figured out the whole concept, because I didn't understand waiting and the value in it at all. Right. To me, sex was like a massage. If it feels good, do it. Why would we wait? I understand it completely now, and I can break it down more practically than anyone on earth, I believe. I have the #1 video in the world on YouTube for waiting to have sex. It's got 1.2 million views. And anybody that doesn't understand it, like me when I started, I can explain to you, this is how it's going to play out. Doesn't mean you're going to wait, but I'm just going to let you know so you know what to expect. And you know all these reasons why these relationships aren't working. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why the divorce rate's 50%, and the people that stay married stop having sex, most of them, right? And like, there's a reason for all this, and I can explain it better than I believe anyone on earth. So that's really why I wrote a book called Why Waiting Works. And I love talking about it. It's my favorite thing to talk about is sex. So
really quickly, just to kind of rewind, what was that time period in between the two celibate blocks. Like
5
how
years.
long was that?
5 years.
So it was 6 years.
6 years off, 5
5
years
years.
sexually active again, and then about 7 years now off.
Okay. Okay. So, because I'm Christian as well,
Mhm.
you know, so I can understand where you go 6 years and you're like, damn,
Hell yeah.
like I'm
What the hell, God?
right. Like
Right.
I thought you had my back. Like
For
what's
real.
going on? And then you just kind of had that moment of giving up, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And you had it for 5 years. So during those 5 years, were you still like actively still going to church
Yeah.
and still?
I was, you know, trying to hang on. I was trying to, you know, like I felt like I was going down a hill and I was trying to grab for something, you
Right.
know, to keep going further down. And but because so what happened was I was a nightclub promoter before I met the Lord. I quit that scene. I, you know, managed a gym for about 5 years. When I went back to the bars, I started promoting again. I thought, okay, I can scratch this itch for having this desire I have for wanting a social life, but I can reach my friends. So I started promoting a club again, and I was good at it. So I literally kind of took over the nightlife again right out the gate. Within 3 months, I had the hottest club in Baltimore on Saturday nights. And but I was leading a small group on Thursdays in the nightclub. So we were reading Purpose Driven Life, great book. And we would go out and feed the homeless after the group. And anybody that come to the small group, I would say to my doorman on Saturday, don't make them pay and let them in for free. So I'd treat them like VIP if they came to basically a Bible study.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, my Bible study blew up. And it was like coke heads and strippers were coming to my small group. And it was awesome. And I was
Right.
like, dude, these are my people.
I'm reaching out to the people.
I was like, this is what I've wanted, right? But it was
Right.
super edgy, obviously. And here I didn't have good accountability, I didn't have great boundaries. And so that's when I slept with a girl. And then I slept with a second girl about a month later. And I tried to keep it quiet because I knew how bad it looked.
Right.
And then some people in the group found out about it and they judged me pretty harshly.
Right.
And at that point, I said, I can't lead this group anymore. I stepped down. And once I stepped down, now all of a sudden I'm the most popular or whatever. I'm a popular promoter again.
Mhm.
Right.
And women are wanting to know me, and I had already broke my 6-year streak, and so I didn't even have that to like that
Yeah,
source.
you didn't have you didn't have nothing to stand on.
I didn't have nothing to stand on, and just everything slowly just went down. That's why. So when I rededicated, like my boundaries were so far up where I was like, I can't even hang out with girls,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, because I don't want to go back to that place.
Yeah.
So when you recommitted to the next 6 years, what was that turning point?
So my dad got stage 4 cancer. He was diagnosed with it, right? You know, so basically he was dying, and just through a series of events around that, God really kind of brought me to my knees, and that's when I made the decision. And it wasn't an easy one because even though my life was kind of it was not a kind of, it was a mess. Even though it was a mess, it still felt so unnatural to go back to that lifestyle because I was like, I already tried it.
Yeah.
And for me to go back in the cage, that's what it felt like. I was like, I'm going to go back in this cage now. And I already did it and it didn't work. I mean, I gave it everything. I was abstinent for 6 years, guy. Like, come on, I couldn't have tried any harder. But it was still to the point where, you know, I guess I made enough of a mess that I was motivated to go back to it, you know?
Nice.
And so for me, CityFam, and just to talk about that, the nonprofit for us is like, it's creating this, you know, for me, this world that I went, when I gave my life to God, this world that I wanted to live in didn't exist, you know, because it was like, okay, great. You can do the right thing and go to church on Sunday, but you got to be bored and not enjoy life the other 6.5 days a week.
Find
But,
that
or if you
balance.
want to have fun and turn up, you just pretty much got to live, you know, like, so for me, it was like, I didn't want to me, it doesn't have to be that black and white. I want to create
Where's
like
the middle? Where's the gray area?
and I feel like it's like that for a lot of people. Not everybody, but for me, it really was that black and white.
Right.
Okay. So tell us about your book.
Yeah, so it's called Why Waiting Works. You can find it at whywaitingworks.com. I wrote the book because, like I said, I didn't understand the concept when I started, and I feel like most other books, if not all of them, that have been written on the subject have been written from like a really spiritual point of view. Like it's a sin, you're breaking a commandment, marriage bed, you know, whatever.
People don't respond to that.
People don't respond to that. So I wanted to write a book that was practical, so that even if you're not a faith, you can understand it, you know, and get value out of it. And that's what I think it's doing for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
What's some of the feedback you've gotten from the book?
It's got an average of, it had 5 stars. I think it's down to 4.5 right now. 4.5 stars on Amazon. I get messages from people all the time that have read it and, you know, tell me that they really caused them to reevaluate their life. But yeah, it's very good feedback, and I'd love to just get into it. So, like, what questions do you guys have about it? How do you feel about the
What's
concept?
the main? So, like, I guess the main question I want to know is like, why should we wait?
Sure.
Why wait?
One of the chapters in the book is everybody else is doing it, and it doesn't mean everybody else is waiting. Everybody's having sex, and if you look at the numbers, right, because only 3% of the population waits till marriage, so 97% aren't waiting. So the divorce rate's 50%, right? Of the 50% that stay married, what percentage do you think are happy? Because I don't think it's that high.
5.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
Even if it's
10%.
that's the lowest I've ever heard. But even if it was 20,
Amen.
Yeah.
even if it was 20, that means your chances of getting married and being happy are 1 in 10 if you do it the way that everybody else does it. So that's pretty good evidence because numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah.
And so we know people are staying together because it's cheaper to keep her, financial reasons. The
or
kids,
keep
children.
him.
the kids, right?
Or
or
him.
cheaper to keep them, right? It just doesn't rhyme. But
To keep them.
my point is when you have, this is what happens, is when you have sex early in a relationship, it changes the dynamics of the relationship. It's easy to be physically attracted to somebody. I mean, to be honest, both of y'all good looking girls, it's easy to be physically attracted, and we've all been in this scenario 1,000 times. You meet somebody of the opposite sex or the same sex if you're homosexual, and you're like, ooh, they're hot, they're good looking. And then after about 2 weeks, let's say you don't date them, you start to look at them different. You're like, they're good looking, but nah, not for me. Right? We've all been there 1,000 times. Because at that point, you've broke through the surface, and now you can start to read something inside. But the average dates that the American goes on before having sex is 3. So they're getting on their dating app. They're going on 3 dates. And before they can even break through, they're having sex. And now they're in something complicated with somebody that they didn't even know. That person comes over their house. Now you're checking your phone. And I'm thinking, who the hell is she texting? Because she feels like she's mine now because I had sex with her. And now I'm in something with somebody that I should have never been in it with. And next thing you know, 5 years go by, which is what happened to me with my first girlfriend. We had sex on the first date. And then I didn't even want to be in a relationship. And I was honest with her. I was like, I ain't the one. Don't wait for me. But after a while, something changed where I didn't want other people to date her. And she put up with my shit long enough that I started feeling like obligated to her. Like I owed it to her because she put up with so much of my shit. So I eventually committed to her. And then I was not in love. And guess what? Then I didn't even want to have sex with her because the physical attraction faded because we weren't connected on a deep level.
That's true.
And
That's what happens all the time.
Yeah, and you also start to you don't want to see the red flags. Once you have sex with someone, like those red flags aren't even a factor
100%.
because it's you're already tied to that person in a sense.
So what do you think? So what do you have to say for the people that are like I don't know, like I have certain friends that maybe they have sex with somebody like just to have sex, and they're like, oh, but it's just sex. It's never gonna be anything else. Is that a good idea?
No, there's no such thing as casual sex or friends with benefits. I mean, sex without commitment is anti-community. 100% is. Like, to me, everything is about together. It's the more good friends you can have, the better your life will be. The more things you'll have to look forward to. But if you were to have sex with her, be having sex with her, and you said, you know what, I don't want to have sex with you anymore. I want to have sex with her now. She's not going to be your friend. She ain't going to be your friend anymore. I don't care if you guys were
and we're all just friends.
You know what I mean? Yeah, we're just sex.
Yeah.
No, you're going to lose her as a friend. You're an asshole, even if you were honest the whole time. That's 100%. I've been in that situation. It doesn't matter. This is the way we're wired. You're going to lose that person as a friend. Plus, you're kicking the can further down the road because all the studies are there that the more people you have sex with, the higher your chance of divorce is and the lower sexual satisfaction you'll have in your marriage. There's studies out there. People that marry with 0 to 1 partners have the best sex lives and the lowest divorce rates. Everybody with above 10 have the highest divorce rates if you have more than 10 partners. So, I mean, I might be screwed.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean?
So it seems like you have a lot. Okay, you've done a lot. You had a lot of experiences, sexual with women. So I guess it's gonna be 2 questions. First question: what made you break up with the girlfriend when you were trying to get it all together? I mean,
the first time?
The first time.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that and my secondary question right now is, there's the question of no sex before marriage, because my position on it is you want to know if you're sexually compatible with the person.
Yeah.
So it could be, I mean, everything works, but then that thing doesn't. and it could either hinder the relationship or you get over it.
Yeah.
But that also depends on how you're wired,
Mm-hmm.
and is that something that is that one of your languages that you speak, for a relationship?
Sure. Yeah, I love to talk about that. So first question is, broke up with my girlfriend because I wasn't in love. I was cheating on her, and when I became aware of the truth that Jesus was who he said he was, and that I was going to have to commit to one woman for the rest of my life, I knew that she wasn't the one, and that's really what broke us up. As far as your point, that is the most common argument that you hear is you got to take a car for a test drive before you buy it, and they're like, you wouldn't do that without buy a car without taking it for a test drive. I'm like, but would you buy milk if someone else test sampled it? Like,
Oh,
you know what I mean? I don't want some milk that somebody took a sip of and put back on the rack, because essentially you lowered the value of that milk, right? And look, that's basically what you're doing. Where you're saying, hey, I want to try it out, and if I don't like it, I want to put it back on the rack. So that to me is not. If you really think it through, it doesn't stand up. People aren't cars, obviously. But this is what I say to people mostly in that situation is, look, let's say you get with somebody and the sex is great, right? And then you marry them, and then they get hit by a car or they get cancer,
Right.
and they can't have sex. Do you leave? Because if you do, you're a shitbag, and your vows mean nothing. So don't even get married, because you're not marrying a body part. You're marrying someone that you're in love with. And if they're good, and hopefully they're good in bed. I know I've been with a lot of women where I could tell the sex was going to be good before we ever did it. It was just good chemistry. Okay. So hopefully the sex is going to be good. But if it's not, you work through it because you're in love with them. You're not marrying a body part. And even if they're great in bed, it's like reverse cowgirl is not going to be enough to get you through all the storms of life. You know what I mean?
No,
you're going to need more than sex. You know what I'm saying?
It depends on the people.
What if you're in love with them and they're bad in bed? Do you think you would leave someone that you're in love with if they just didn't tickle you right?
No. That would be good.
Or
I feel like
But no, I understand what you're saying. But I'm just saying, because I know people who are married now for the last 6 years or whatever, who's still talking about the issues that they've had with their significant other since college.
Did they wait?
For sex?
Did they wait?
Wait, for sex or for just issues in general?
No,
This is the thing. Did they wait
sex.
though?
They did not.
So there's a good chance that they're not in love. Maybe it was just the sex that kept them together. Because if they were in love,
no.
Look, let me tell you about this couple. There's Chris and Lori Lockamy. Chris is a pastor of a church they go to in Baltimore. Lori's his wife. They waited. They got married, and then right after they got married, something happened where she got like some kind of paralysis from the waist down, lost control of her bowels. He was changing diapers as a newlywed, like a husband.
Wow.
Loves her. She's had cancer 3 times.
Oh
Ride or die, he's been with her through the whole thing. That to me is love. You watch The Notebook, everybody wants that kind of love. The kind of love that we're talking about is not that kind of love, like, oh, she's not good in bed, deuces. No. You know what I'm saying? Like,
real tears.
if you want that kind of love, you got to be willing to go about it the right way.
Yeah. And just speaking, I mean, it's easy to teach someone how to fuck you, I guess you could say.
Apparently.
It's
Hey, and they're all trainable. Like, I really agree with that. So wait, you're saying, I just picked this up, but like, so wait until you're married, not just wait in general.
Yes, wait until you're married, because that is the
Ooh.
First off, talk is cheap. Like, look, I could say, is it Stacy?
It is.
Stacy, I love you. Let's have sex. And you'd be like, Rob.
Yes, lay down.
Look, Rob, I love you too. Let's just run down to the Justice of the Peace real quick and get married. I'd be like, let me think about this a little longer. Here's the deal. The Bible says, I have to quote it because it's my book.
Come on.
It says the heart is deceitful above all things. So my heart will lie to me and get me to believe something that's not true in order for me to give my flesh what it wants.
Right.
But guess what? What she said to me, it forces me to evaluate. Is it really telling me the truth? Because I know if I marry you and it's lying to me, it's gonna cause me pain.
So what do you think?
That's why marriage works. Because I got a lot of good-looking girls around me right now, and I would have sex with any number of them.
Right.
When I get lonely or horny or whatever. But what I'll do is I'll look at them and say, would I sign the contract to have the sex? And I haven't met one yet.
Or even like the other.
Marriage? No, I'm sorry. What is marriage?
In the Bible, sex was marriage. It wasn't a ceremony. It said, look, you sleep with her, she's yours.
Yeah, so
you
my
take care of her.
Is,
that's what in the Bible. That's what marriage was.
So let's evaluate this right quick, Rob, because you're better than me in this one. Go from the Bible perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because I haven't read it yet. It's on my short list. But the point I'm trying to ask is, what is marriage, and is the legal contract marriage, or is it the culmination of two people that know that there's it's just hey, we're in it together, it's us? What was marriage back then? How is it?
In the Bible, it was sex. If you sleep with her,
Come on now.
she's yours.
Come on.
This is.
But if
it's
you
just,
sleep with her, she's yours.
She's
That's
yours.
she, not like she, and she.
well,
right?
actually, yeah. In the
in
Bible,
the Bible,
in the Old
she,
Testament, there was
she.
polygamy, but even still, you were
Yeah.
taking care of that person. You were providing for her. You were
No.
protecting her. And this is what we want to do as men.
Yeah.
Is we're like, you know what? I want to have sex with you, but I still want to be free to maybe have sex with somebody else down the road.
I understand that.
So we don't want to give the commitment, because at the end of the day, a woman's part, woman wants security, and I know this might offend, and men want sex. So women give the sex, and then they wait for the
They wait for
proposal.
security, right.
They're waiting for it, and guess what? We drag our feet because we're already getting the sex, so we're not motivated anymore. That's why it's supposed to be at the same time when
Why
your wedding
pay for
night.
the cow when the milk is free?
100%. It's true.
100% milk.
4% at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with that to a certain extent. I guess the reason why I'm saying that is you could be in a situation where you and that person have, let's say y'all waited a long time and now y'all live together. Y'all may not be legal. I guess the reason why I say this is because in this day and time, people are becoming more and more aware of how marriage is such a contractual issue. You're getting people involved in your business, and another. You can be married and not have went to the courthouse, is what I'm saying. Because it's something between two people. Not necessarily two people and a third party.
So you're talking like legal marriage versus like
the
Bible.
people that are living. Oh, the Bible.
To me, it's more about
It really is.
the marriage is just the acceptable standard that we use. If it would be the same as, for example, let's say you wanted to have sex with my sister, and I'd be like,
Right.
okay, you can have sex with her, but if you decided you don't want her anymore, I'm going to shoot you.
Right.
It'd be the same outcome where you're still going to go, this is going to cause me pain if I'm wrong, so I don't want to get myself into something complicated.
Yeah.
And that's really why God gave us that standard. It's not because he's holding out on us. He just knows that we'll have less sex later, and we'll have a less fulfilling relationship, and we may not reach our full potential if we choose the wrong person, and all these things that go into fast sex. Because that's what happens, the physical, like we said, the physical attraction fades, or you link up with somebody that's not your soulmate.
Right.
They were created to go over here, and you're created to
Yeah,
do
you
this
waste a
other
lot of
thing over
time.
here, and you can never go to your place because the person that you marry should be the person that helps you get to your purpose in life, and you for them. So to me, it's just a really practical decision. It happens to be the hardest thing I've ever done too.
Oh, I bet you don't have to sleep 2 hours a day, though.
You get a lot of
Yeah, I was like, why? That's not Chase.
Too much energy, man.
Well, no, and I was gonna say, like, I really think that's a great thing, and it does work, because even my sister, like, her and her husband, they just got married. They're like 25, 26. They waited, but to his point, like he was saying, it did force them to kind of like, since they weren't gonna have sex, they weren't gonna date for 5 or 6 years and then just not have sex. Instead, they get married after a year, and then because of that, they have to evaluate, like, okay, do I really like this person? Do they really like me? Are we really compatible? This, that, and the other, sooner than just dragging it out 2 to 3 years, waiting. Oh, I guess we don't like each other, all that kind of stuff. And then they, but now they're married, happily married, I'm sure they have things here and there, but they waited and made those commitments.
So I'll say to that, like my last girlfriend 7 years ago, I was in when I rededicated a relationship I was in. Terrible relationship, great sex. Rededicated, felt like God's conviction over it. Honestly, that's the reason I stopped. And I felt like God was telling me, I want you to do better in this department. So I remember first thing that I thought was, I had fear. I thought, okay, if you stop having sex with her, you're going to go back to being a man whore. That will be worse. To me, that was the devil lying to me, trying to get me to disobey. So I said, okay, I'm not going to listen to that. I prayed. I said, look, God, I'm going to try this your way. I said, I'm going to stop having sex. And if I'm in love, I want you to convince me of it, and I'll marry her, and we'll do this your way. But if I'm not in love, I want you to break us up. And we had broken up a bunch of times. Up until then, we would always get back together, though. I said, I want you to break us up because we obviously can't do it ourselves. So I went to my girlfriend. I said, look, I'm not sure if we're built to last. I said, but I think this is how we're going to figure it out. We're going to stop having sex. We've been having sex for a year and a half. I said, and if we're really in love, let's just get married. But if we're not in love, let's stop wasting each other's fucking time.
Right.
And guess what? 3 weeks later, we broke up. It was like the clouds parted, and all of a sudden we could both think, and we were like, done.
I
2
don't
weeks
really
later,
like you that much.
2 weeks later, she started dating her neighbor. She got pregnant, and now she lives in Florida with her baby. And we are great friends, and I'm like, woo, dodge that bullet.
Right.
But I would have never known that while we were having sex, because the red flags, everything, it feels like you're in love. I was in love with the idea of her. It was just this messed up 2 years of my life, and that I could have potentially missed my right person in that 2 years. I don't know. But I do think people do it all the time because they won't stop long enough to figure out, are you really in love? If you are, get married.
Right.
I don't even see how anybody could even argue that.
So do you think you get a second person? Let's say you missed the first person. Because
That's a great question. I want to know. I might have missed mine.
Like, hey, I missed
God's like, you know what? I'm going to send you.
Jesus,
So
I was tripping, bruh. But now she gone. I'm focusing. I'm not jacking off. I'm so focused. At this point, I can break anything. Will you please send me one more?
Yeah. I don't know if there's one or, I say, I don't know if there's one or maybe it's 1% of the population that you could be highly compatible with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think it's more than 1%. But I don't, I think that God makes allowances for us. It's not like boom, that's it. You blew your chance kind of thing.
Yeah.
You'll meet
And
somebody.
God knew you were going to mess up anyway.
Yeah,
So he already knew that
wasn't really the real one.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
She'll come along when it's time,
Appreciate you, bro.
but you still got to get your act together in order for her to come
100%.
sooner.
Or you'll get him, even if, like I said, if it's 1%, you might have to go through 50 to get to that one. And you're going to get, if you're having sex, you're going to get hemmed up with at least a couple of them on the way. And you might miss that 1%.
Yeah.
It's just real from a practical standpoint.
So what is horniness, man? It just sucks to have it.
was what?
If you didn't get horny, you'd be fine. If you could just focus, you would be fine. But you're clearly
I can
tested.
focus.
Men are tested.
I was like, I
daily.
focus.
It's not just
men
on
are-
trip.
I focus for 6 months at a time sometimes.
No,
It's harder for a man.
Testosterone is a drug.
Mm-hmm.
It is. If you don't have time to go to the gym that day, and a guy has to make himself tired not to think about sex in some other way.
So there's one of the chapters I talk about in the book is called
That's right.
Sex Transmutation. So it was a principle in a book called Think and Grow Rich, which is a classic success book. A guy, Napoleon Hill, wrote it. And he talks about sexual energy is the strongest energy of all human energies. And it can be channeled into other things. And people have used it, people of notable achievement throughout history, like inventors and really wealthy people that you would recognize have used that sexual energy to build empires. And you can do it. So for me, since I stopped having sex, I had to do something with that energy. So I wrote a book. I started a nonprofit. I volunteered and went on all these international relief trips. I had to do something. And because I spent a lot of time and energy chasing tail. And when I stopped, I did something productive with it. So really, even when you look at things like NoFap, which is basically no jerking off, no looking at porn. Right. If you keep that sexual energy, there's a lot of benefits, in other positive ways. It's not easy though. But listen, it's like saying, "Oh man, I'd be lean if I didn't get hungry." You gotta learn to manage that appetite. You know what I'm saying? You have to.
Right. Okay. So back in your bad boy days, what were some of the lines that you used on women to have sex with them quicker?
I didn't use lines. I didn't even have great game. What I did good was I positioned myself in environments that it just became easy to sleep with women. So I was a stripper, which is, you get a lot of women like that. And then I became a nightclub promoter.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah.
You, but there's a reason.
Yeah.
I think this is a good moment for tricking.
Oh,
It's like, what's your definition of tricking?
Have you heard of tricking?
Tricking just like it's like selling your ass? What
No.
is that?
No. Oh, okay. We gotta go around the room.
Okay, so tricking, my definition of tricking is when a man spends money on a woman, right? They spend their money with the intention of getting something back.
Yeah, well, that's every man for the most part.
No.
Okay,
do you have yours or no?
Sorry.
Same thing. I guess I'll use the
or men spending large sums of money like that maybe they have in order to get sex.
But wouldn't the girl be the one
Well,
tricking?
it's called tricking because it's the guy tricking off his money.
Okay, okay.
So that's the
But women could do it too. I can imagine that if you were a stripper and maybe like, you know, there's older women or younger women that would use
See, I talk about that too. Like, women don't have to pay for sex. Yeah. Women can have sex anytime they want.
Thank you.
Look,
thank you, Rob.
we talked about that today. A woman could go out and have sex with 50 different men every day for the rest of their life, no problem. Doesn't even matter if they're attractive or not.
Nope.
A man does not have that luxury. Even if you're a stud, you're not getting laid by a different woman every night. More than likely, you might have a couple on rotation or whatever, but it's just not the same. So women don't have to pay for sex.
Okay, so my definition is tricking to me is a man shelling out money to ensure that he gets something that he would not get if he did not shell out that money. So with that being said, I think in the circles that you used to run in, Rob, you've seen some tricking.
Oh, no doubt.
Have you ever got a large gift from a woman? And what was it?
A large gift? No, I don't. Nothing that stands out to me.
Not a house, but maybe like a watch.
I definitely had some girls that would, they knew that the only way they were going to be able to see me was, I remember when a girl bought me. I was young. I was like 19 years old. And she bought me like a case of tuna fish one time. I was in the bodybuilding. For whatever reason, that's the gift that came to mind.
You were that easy back then?
I was so easy. I was so easy.
I'm sure. Like, I'm sure it might have.
She got me peanut butter. We fucking.
No, we were already having sex at this point. But no, I don't think a girl ever got me anything to have sex with me. It might have been girls that I was having sex and they wanted to continue to have sex with me. Right. So that
Or even you're a clip promoter. I feel like it could work the same way. Like, hey, I'll let you into this super exclusive party if you sleep with me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I definitely gave girls benefits.
This is a safe place.
Oh no! Look, men do.
It's only going on the internet. It's safe.
Kinds of things.
We're not gonna tell anybody else but the entire internet.
Yeah, men do all kinds of things to score points with women that they would like to sleep with. So I'm sure I did plenty of that, like every other man. You know what I mean? So. But I don't, it was never anything like, oh, I'm going to do this and, some kind of arrangement. It might have been like me hoping that, she's going to see that I'm the man and want to, hook up with me or something. Which I feel is pretty I'm sure it's a level.
We all tricked. Yeah, a level of tricking.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
It's low. I think there may be lower level tricking, but high level, it's not high level. High level.
I never had enough money to high level trick, to be honest.
Like I'm not. Yeah, just go buy everything. Fuck that.
No shopping sprees.
You can get whatever you like.
That's
it. Tricking. That's a tricking song.
So Chase, what are some lines you've given women in order to have sex with them?
I don't do that.
You've never.
I don't be like, hey, so you know what I'm saying? I've never done that. So
really? So we just like have sex with just because we want to?
No. It's like you kind of like know where the night's going. You kind of just know where the night's going. So it may just end up that she's naked.
How did she get there? What did you say?
You
said nothing.
I took her to dinner and I just said she was naked.
Dinner, and you can tell from like, just the kind of like the chemistry. You can tell by like how she's holding your hand, if she's touching your leg, if she's touching your dick.
Yeah.
Clearly, like, okay, something might happen.
That happens? It's like you just go out and women start touching your dick?
It happens.
What?
It's not like it happens every time you go out.
But it happens.
But you know what? That's the standards of today. Now all you have to do is just take somebody out to dinner, open the door, and then you might get somebody to sleep with you.
No. It's really that easy.
So I understand what you're saying because,
I'm not saying you do it. I'm just saying in general it is that easy nowadays.
Because chivalry's apparently sick as shit. Chivalry is sick. It's not dead, but it's very low.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, it may be possible, but no, I don't think it's that easy. But hey, it can be depending on who you messing with.
I heard a story recently that said somebody got laid and they didn't even use. They were texting. They didn't even use lines. They just used emojis. And they were able to.
Never even use a word.
Never even typed out a word in text. Just emojis, and they got laid. I mean, that's really pretty.
That's new age.
Yeah, I feel like that's how easy it is.
That's different.
Yeah, and it's hard, especially like with us being single, respectful women for the most part. It's difficult to date now because like with situations like this, like why would he talk to me if all he had to do was send her emojis and get exactly what he wants? You know what I mean?
And that's the culture.
It's very easy.
But it depends on the
for
guy,
men now.
Again, it's like if he gonna fuck emoji girl, emoji lover.
Oh, he's gonna.
Why are you? Yeah. Are you attracted to emoji sending guy?
But I mean, we don't know.
But she means the culture, the state of the world. And that's the messed up place for women right now because they're so jaded because they know like every other girl is going to give it to them, and if I don't, they're just going to go to the next one. And it's to me, it's like the equivalent of like if the government's giving out free money to people and they're taking it and it's allowing them to not work and not become to reach their full potential because it's making them lazy and it's screwing it up for everybody else. People say to me, they're like, you put a lot of the responsibility on the women. I'm like, yeah, because you wouldn't go to the people taking the money and say, hey, stop taking the free money. You'd go to the government and say, stop giving out the fucking money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
but what I'm saying,
keep your pussy in your pants, ladies.
Stop giving it out.
But what I'm saying is, since we're talking about money, it's like, okay, if you're dealing with people who are just spending it, who don't understand the value, and they inflate it, right? So now it's not worth what it was worth before, right? So it's like, okay, like you were promiscuous. At some point, sex became muscle memory for you.
Yeah.
It didn't even have the value anymore, right? 100%. So when it doesn't have the value anymore, it's almost pointless. So what I'm saying is when you're dealing with guys who don't understand the value of it, it definitely falls on both parties. But there's gonna be a section of guys who are gonna keep on spending the money, inflation, right? This is like, okay, I need to save my money. You see what I'm saying? So it's definitely two different types. But don't deal with the inflation ass motherfucker.
But there's probably more of those than the ones that are.
Yes, there are.
That and just
way
a natural woman, I feel like maybe I've done this before. It just depends on the guy, I guess. But you just want to think maybe you could be that one.
Yeah.
That exception
women
that you fall, the potential. And I'm not saying every guy. I've definitely learned my lesson with a few of these, but I'm just saying there are some women that don't know the value, and they're just like, well, maybe if I just do this, he'll, be like, nope, she's so awesome.
Yeah,
she'll be the one.
They think that, and so there's a great. If you go to Why Waiting Works, there's a resources page, and there's a great video on there by a woman named Dawn Masler. She's a love biologist, and it's a TED Talk, and she talks about how your brain falls in love, and men and women fall in love completely different. Women, when they orgasm, they release something called oxytocin. It makes them attach. It makes them clingy. This is why women will sleep with you, and then all of a sudden, I can hit once, I can hit twice. But men release something called vasopressin, and it makes you go. It makes you. For me, every time I was the king of the one night stand. Every time I had sex, I was not interested anymore, and I thought something was wrong with me. Men release oxytocin when they commit. So that's why it was supposed to be on your wedding night. I'll give you some pussy when you give me your last name. And that's what's the way it was always supposed to be. That's the way God designed it. But here's the deal. The culture's so fucked up that nobody's doing it anymore, and it's hurting everybody.
Yep.
So I've already said that though. I've always said, hey, in other words, when you like somebody, like after you bust a nut, you're not ready for them to leave.
Because you want them to stay. You want them to
commit.
100%.
Yeah, they're like, okay, I like you.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's true. Cause
that's right. Sorry.
They want you to stay. That's how you know.
If you're not like, so yeah, what you doing tomorrow? Oh, okay, you don't need to go home. If you're not doing that, then like,
yeah.
So, celibacy is difficult.
Yes.
And, sometimes people find other ways to please themselves or their significant other. If you give head, are you still considered celibate?
Yeah. I don't know on a technicality, I guess. But so this is this is what the way I look at that, because trust me, I've wrestled with all those things where I'm like, man, did you go through an emotional roller coaster when you stop? So it's like, well, maybe I could do this and I wouldn't technically be lying or whatever. Like, so but the thing is you still run the risk of getting a soul tie to that person, because the way I wasted years with the wrong people was I was having sex with them, and then that feeling of obligation came, and then eventually I committed to them out of obligation, and then ended up wasting a lot of time with them. So let's say someone's just your friend and they're sucking your dick, right? Eventually, whether it's spoken or unspoken, that person's going to have some expectation of you.
Right.
And at some point, if you're not committing to them, there's a reason, because you're not in love with them. So that means you're looking around, you're keeping your options open. At the point where you decide, oh, I really want to pursue this relationship, she's going to be pissed off, and or you may just stay in the relationship because you feel like, man, I owe her, like she's been giving me head for the last 6 months or whatever. So it's going to create some bad dynamics. So for me, it's like, it's not wisdom, it's and more than likely it's probably going to lead to something else, because the way our flesh is, you always want more. You know what I mean? If I eat one cookie tonight, I'm going to want 2 cookies tomorrow night. You know what I mean? So it's always this, your flesh is never satisfied. It always wants more. So I would say, as hard as it is, the right way is complete abstinence, which means not even jerking off, no porn, which I've struggled with all that. I'm totally not pointing a finger. I'm just saying, I know which way north is, and I'm doing my best to go in that direction.
So how long did it take you to, like, okay, in other words, to like, okay, I'm veering left, jacking off, veering right, woman. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Until you just started going north. Like, what was that time period where you were like, okay, all this is hard?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's probably still not easy.
Yeah.
But now it's like you've seen all the results, right? It's almost like a diet. You don't do a crash diet.
Yeah.
You wean yourself off. It becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right.
So the first 6 years, it was literally like that. I just stopped, and it was super, super hard. It was like I say in the book, it was almost like going through withdrawal to a substance, where you're just, my emotions were all over the place, super lonely, depressed, everything. And but at the same time, I was so determined, because I just had this really radical experience where I felt God called me, and I was like, he's got something planned for me, and I have to live up to whatever his expectations are. So I made it through that. The second time, when I rededicated, it took me about 6 or 7 months to get it under control, and it was, I think, in like end of 2011 is when I rededicated, and I didn't stop having sex until June of 2012. So it was about 7 months, and it was like you said, it just was a struggle, man, because my flesh was weak at that point, because I'd been giving it whatever it wanted, for a long time, and it just took a while.
So you mentioned soul ties. For those that don't know what that is.
Yeah. So it's kind of a Christianese term, where, you sleep with somebody and then you get some kind of connection to them, where I believe sex was a connection mechanism that God gave us. So you meet somebody that you're in love with, on your wedding night, you get married, you're sure you've been dating them with a clear head. You're thinking, okay, I don't see any red flags. Boom, you get married, you have sex, you consummate, you connect. That connection carries you through all the storms of life. So the family unit stays together, because God knows life is hard, and he wanted us to stay together, for the kids especially. But what happens is we treat sex like it's recreation. So we have sex and then we pull away, and we have sex and we pull away. And after a while, we don't stick so good anymore, which is why the Bible says it puts sexual sin in a class all of its own. It says anyone that sins sexually sins against their own. It says all other sins a person commits are outside the body, but a person that sins sexually sins against their own body. Yeah, so you break that connection mechanism. And if you look at the studies, why they say people with 10 or more partners have the highest divorce rates and the lowest.
Because they're good at doing this.
They lost that stickiness. They lost their stickiness. Now I hope and I believe that God can restore that stickiness with time, which is probably why he's had me on the shelf for as long as he did, because I believe that he's
so much time off the shelf.
I've had so much time off now that I'm hoping that when I finally do meet that person, now I can be intimate, because I believe what we want more than even sex is intimacy. We want to be known
with
and
somebody
be
that with the person you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got you. So so a soul tie is really, I reference a girl, my first girlfriend in the book, where Had sex with her on the first date. Spent 5 years together. I was unhappy through most of the 5 years. Wondering if I could be happier with other girls, but still felt stuck in the relationship. We finally broke up, and then she started dating somebody else, and unexplainably or whatever, unexpectedly, it drove me crazy. Like all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh shit, I have to get her back."
Right.
I got her back. And it was,
you didn't even want
and then about 2 weeks later, I was like, "Why did I do that? I was free." And then, so we went through another year. We broke up again. She started dating somebody else. The exact same thing. Drove me crazy. Super depressed. Got to get her back. I went all in. I was like, "I'll quit stripping. We'll get engaged. We'll move back in together." And she said she ended up marrying that guy and didn't come back. But that was a soul tie. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
But I was attached to this girl. I thought I was. When I was with her, I wasn't wanting to be with her, wasn't in love, but when we were apart, I couldn't be without her. I didn't want other people to have her. That's the power of a soul tie. It keeps you in relationships with the wrong people longer.
Yeah.
But it could be a good thing if you're with the right person. A soul tie is great if you're with the right person.
Rob is an extreme person.
I am.
No,
I feel like I'm getting a class right now.
Yeah,
like I'm
but see,
so
it's like-
educated.
It couldn't be like a regular dude who like fucked a few women that will be in this position, because in other words, what he's had to deal with as far as like the celibacy, whatever, right? Going through that whole situation before, it's extremes.
It is.
It's extreme fucking, extreme not fucking.
Yeah.
It is. For real, no, but in other words,
Yeah.
the study that a person has to be an extremist to be able to go into the depths of study that he's went through to even make a book like this.
Yeah, I say that. I say I lived at polar ends of the spectrum when it comes to sex, maybe more so than anyone in the history of the world.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone's lived at those such extremes, because I literally had so much casual sex, and then I've had none for so long that it's at some point it just becomes really clear how it all breaks down.
Yeah, it makes people want to listen too.
Thanks.
So what do you say about the gray area people? Because you're black and white.
Yeah.
Well, I've already said fuck enough. But see, the thing about the gray area folks, the people who may have casual here, casual there, get into a relationship, they don't see what you've seen. It's like being in a land of milk and honey, and then being in a desert.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but a person who's been in the middle, it's like, no, because it's like, oh, it was like this when I was doing that. So they haven't seen the extremes.
Maybe it's not as bad for
It's
them.
not as bad
like,
for
what would
them.
make them?
They're still on the
Yeah.
road that leads to the same place. They might not have gone down as far to the end of the road as not
Right.
the end, but as far down the road as I went. But the road that they're on, if they're engaging in sex without
Right.
marriage or without commitment, the road leads to the same place. They haven't walked as far yet.
Yeah.
If they're on a road where they're waiting, that road goes to the same place. They may not have waited as long as me, but the roads go to the same place. You say land flowing with milk and honey, and I really love that analogy, because I look a lot about it as like when I was having sex. So I look at the Bible. I look at the Israelites. I like the Old Testament, and they talk about where they were living they were in Egypt, and they were living in slavery. They had 3 square meals. They had a roof over their head, and God says, "Look, I want to take you to this better place, this land flowing with milk and honey, this promised land." But they had to go through the wilderness to get there. And the wilderness wasn't fun. It was not pleasant. It was not familiar. If you remember, a lot of them got out there and were like, man, I want to go back to Egypt. At least we had cucumbers back there. Some of them wanted to go back. That's what it's like when you step out. Like right now, I'm walking toward my promised land. I haven't arrived yet. I'm getting close, I believe. But I've had to go through this wilderness period. And nobody gets around it. Right. Everybody. So I was having a lot of sex in Egypt. But I wasn't. I was doing.
It wasn't
something.
even that good.
I was doing something I didn't love. I felt like there was more to life, and there was more inside of me, and I was capable of. But I had some sex, and I had a roof over my head, and that's basically what it was. Everybody's got to go through the wilderness to get to their promised land. Yeah. Nobody gets around it.
And that's not just sex. It seems that it's definitely something. I think the book is good just for anybody who's trying. That whatever you're doing right now is not working. Guys out there.
Stop it.
It's not working right now for you. But if you just go through the desert, the wilderness, you may get Stay Sorry.
Shut up.
You may get Jessica Lola 51. But you're not going to get it tonight.
I'm in my wilderness right now, Chase. Leave me alone.
Yes.
I'm in my desert.
Get away from us.
Yeah. I'm walking my path.
I offer them up every episode.
All right. So we have an Insta question. his username's Blue Ballas. That just happened.
That's
Yeah.
weird.
So I know.
BOLAZ too.
Mm-hmm. How has social media changed the expectations for both men and women when it comes to relationships, sex, dating, etc.?
Man, it's definitely made it easier to meet and I'm sure hook up with women. I have friends that are still in the club scene and they're like, you know, they have bars in DC and people don't go out like they used to because you used to have to go out to meet women and now you just can get on your phone.
Inflation.
And you ain't got to, you know, you don't have to even put in the work. So I definitely think it's made it easier. It's probably made us a lot lazier because, you know, it's easy. It goes down in the DM. So it's really easy. You know what I mean?
Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. There's just so many
DMs
ways.
don't pop. It's crazy. Good thing I'm saying.
But no, what do you think?
No, I agree. I agree that there's definitely it's an inflated market like we've been talking about. But there's definitely a quantity over quality issue with the state of inflation. Right? You know, it's not value. It's definitely not value. But it's like, when does a person realize that they're not valuing what the fuck they just got last night?
Yeah.
Are you valuing yourself? Was it even fucking fun? Like, or was it just, you know, it was muscle memory? You needed to, because we're all animals, really. We're just somewhat civilized. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, for a man, when they have a certain amount of testosterone, when it's hit a certain level, they have a certain action that they're used to doing when it hits that level. And it's up to the brain to actually be like, okay, let me not do that, as what Rob does, not do that, and do something else to actually counter it. But social media is right here. It's anyone, they're here, right here. What are you going to do?
Right.
Well, and if you didn't have social media, you wouldn't even meet this quality. But now
you wouldn't.
And quality over quantity is what I'm saying. So like, as opposed to if there wasn't social media,
The lower quality.
I might get hit by a bus and a really handsome firefighter comes and I meet him and I marry him. But now I could meet like 50 Joe Schmoes on,
Bumble
Tinder,
So in
Bumble,
other
or
words,
whatever,
natural
and then
fate,
I'll meet that
that's what it
firefighter.
is.
So I'm meeting more people, more quality. Hopefully before I meet that quantity or quality or whatever. But
In other words, natural fate has been tampered with due to man's data.
yes.
Ooh, that was good. You should have wrote that
I'm
down.
sorry.
One thing I challenge people is like, you think about instant gratification, because that's what casual sex is, you know, and I had a lot of it. But name one thing in life where you get long-term happiness from instant gratification. You can't think of anything. Everything for long-term happiness comes from delayed gratification. Whether it's getting an education, you have to delay gratification. If you want to buy a home, you got to save money. If you want to get in shape, you can't eat that stuff. You got to work out. You always got to discipline.
It's always the
So really, if you want
travel.
fulfillment, we talked about this yesterday. Happiness and fulfillment are completely different. Happiness is what is fun right now. Fulfillment is usually what's hard right now and feels better later.
Yeah.
So if you want fulfillment, which is what I want, long-term happiness, you got to discipline yourself, and it sucks.
That's true.
It just sucks.
So too, God just wants you to feel like there's a difference, like you just said, between joy and what you said.
Yeah.
Like God wants you to have joy as opposed to just being happy for that 1 second.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
same
I have
thing.
a quote that I have actually written on my door at work. It's like, if not for the journey, there would be no reward. Right? But you know, I guess the question is, so from the standpoint of sex, let's say you're not there yet. Let's say that you're a heathen, right? Can you start
a hoe?
A hoe?
That was the worst.
Can you
Manhole.
can you start like off with something else? Like let's say your diet's fucked up too. Can I like start? Let me start eating healthy first. Like let me make sure I can do that.
What, you want some baby step by step
baby
directions?
steps. Baby steps to understand like what are my signals or what are my trigger points that say I can't do something.
I mean, you know, people don't have to agree with me that waiting until marriage is the right stance, although it is. I know it is. But, you know, if somebody listening to this, if they're used to having sex on the third date and they hear this and they go, you know, he might be right. And they wait 4 dates the next person they meet. And in between that third and fourth date, they find out something about that person that helps them avoid an unwanted pregnancy or waste years with the wrong person. To me, that's a win.
Damn,
We
I
help
don't want
somebody.
pregnancy.
So for me, it's like, okay, you say start baby steps, wait one more date. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Wait
Okay.
one more date and see what happens. Like you look at like Tim Tebow, Colton Underwood, the recent Bachelor,
Yeah.
Justin Bieber just came out that he waited. People are starting to figure this out, and they're starting to see value in this whole concept. And I think people, once they understand it, it's going to start a movement, and people are going to be awake because people go to the gym all the time. I understand. I don't like going to the gym. I do it. It's a means to an end. I go because I want to look and feel a certain way. I don't wait because I want to. I wait because I'm looking for the payoff. You know what I mean? So once people understand, oh shit, I can actually find long-term happiness going about it this way, then they'll start to do it.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate coming at you now.
Sure.
What do you say about the marriages that worked and they've been fucking the whole time?
I think they got lucky. They should thank their lucky
What?
stars. No, look, I'm not saying it can't happen.
What about God?
What about the people that hit the Powerball? It's not a strategy for building retirement. There are people that win, but it's not like a smart way to go about planning your future.
Better
I'm
odds.
saying you're rolling the dice. Yeah, there's a chance it could happen. I could go to the freaking casino tonight and drop a penny and win $1 million. But more than likely,
If I do that,
you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it's a way to put the odds in your favor. Now, I know
Yeah.
people that have waited and still it didn't work out. Like I know a girl that waited and was married 19 years and then her husband cheated on her and left her. It's not a guarantee. There ain't no guarantees in life. I'm just saying it's a way to put the odds in your favor.
Okay. We gotta play both sides.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about CityFam and what you're doing to launch in Houston.
Sure. Yeah. So basically the idea from it came about because, like I said, here I was on the shelf. I was waiting. Didn't have the luxury of hopping from girl to girl anymore. To me, sex was a crutch. And all of a sudden, I was like, I needed community, like real friends. Like I needed air. I didn't really need real friends before. I had friends that I partied with, but when you're having sex, it's like you don't really need great friends. So when I got serious about waiting, I really realized that I needed friendships because I needed things to do and people to do them with. So really started organizing the social and service events, and really through those relationships, it helped me become the best version of myself because now you had friends that weren't just. The relationships weren't just built on like having fun. Because, for me, when the shit hit the fan in my life and it wasn't fun anymore, the people that I thought were my friends weren't around. Because it wasn't fun. You know what I mean? So, and that was painful. So now CityFam is really built on this spirit of sacrifice. Like, it's like, hey, if you're sick, I'm going to call you. If you need help moving, I'm going to show up. And life gets really good when you have friends, like relationships like that. So that's really what CityFam is built on. And we have some people here in Houston that are getting the chapter off the ground. We're supposed to have our first social event on Saturday, May 4th. We may be at the Rustic. We're not 100% yet, but wherever it is, we will have it on the CityFam website by the time this episode comes out, and it will benefit. So our motto is our social events always benefit a local charity. So we take a portion of whatever money is raised from that event. We donate it to the charity, but then we actually go and we volunteer. We serve at that charity. Usually about 2 weeks later, we give about 3 hours of our time. And I tell you, something happens when you start giving back, when you start becoming part of the solution. For me, I used to say I made a lot of problems in my life. I used to make a lot of problems. But when I started volunteering and I became part of the solution, it felt so good. It somehow changed me. So that for us is a big part of helping people self-actualize, is getting them into volunteering, giving them opportunities to give back in their community. And that's what we want to do here in Houston.
Okay. So it's going to be like I was reading on it. It's going to be like an app that you can go volunteer basically with like other people.
So
or it's a social event and then you go volunteer.
It's not an app yet. We actually have an app. I think that the app may be on the App Store, but we haven't launched it. Right now, it's a website where you can sign up. You'll get our emails. We'll have social media pages for the Houston chapter up soon. But yeah, it'll be social and service. So the social, you'll come out if that's your thing. You're looking for fun things to do. You'll have that. If you do want to give back, you'll also have the opportunity to serve. Some people only come to social events. Some people only come to service events. Ideally, you come to both. But yeah, did I miss anything? No. Okay.
Sounds awesome. Like it.
Yeah. And it's just a good way to meet good people.
Maybe your wife, Chase.
Yeah, or maybe
y'all's husband.
I wouldn't bring up that first term, that pegging thing, though.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying I could go my whole life without it, but
She keeps saying
I'm
that.
just saying,
You can't
Somebody
say I can
asked.
go my whole life without it, but I want to know my stroke game is what.
I'm curious.
Okay.
Leave me alone.
Mhm.
Well, that's all we have. Thank you so much for coming out.
It's great
This
being
was
here.
definitely some good info.
Very informative.
Loved it.
I've enjoyed it.
I might go buy the book on Amazon
There
and
you
read
go.
it.
So it's on Amazon. Where else is it?
It's at whywaitingworks.com. It's on Amazon. You can go to, we have, Facebook and Instagram, Why Waiting Works. I actually got a small group curriculum that we developed with it, because after I wrote the book, I realized just convincing people that it's the right thing isn't enough. Like, they have to have a tribe, a group of people to make the journey with, because if you're going through the wilderness, the chances of you making it alone are so slim, because you'll just burn out. You'll get lonely. You'll get bored. You'll get on Tinder. You'll go back to the bar.
Yeah.
So you have to have a group of people to kind of encourage you along the way and support you as you make these right decisions. So that's really what the small group curriculum has done. And it's like an 8-week curriculum, and one of the weeks is a social event. One of the weeks is a service event. So it really simulates what it was like for us when we started CityFam in Baltimore, which isn't the abstinent group. I always have to say that, because I talk a lot about abstinence. So that obviously would be a pretty small group if it was just I mean, look, it's the right. So it's not the sober group, it's not the abstinent group, but people that happen to be waiting find a lot of value in CityFam.
Mhm.
And hopefully people in CityFam will start to find value in waiting.
Right.
If they're not already.
Sounds good, man. Just can you take us out?
Awesome. Well, we loved having you.
Yes.
Make sure you guys go follow Rob at what's your Instagram handle?
It's Rob B. Kowalski. and
We'll
it's
also
Kowalski
put
with
it
an
in the comments below. If you guys found this helpful, please comment below. If you didn't find it helpful, maybe you should still comment below. Like, subscribe. Any questions maybe you have for him, you could put below. Send them over to Rob. We're excited to hopefully have your CityFam launched here in Houston.
Yeah.
Can't wait. I expect to see y'all on May 4th.
Fourth.
Yes.
We
We can
know.
come out,
Guys.
We can record out there.
Hey, guys.
Shut up.
It's me again.
No.
Chase is about to embark on his new journey of celibacy.
Yes.
At the end of his 1-year celibacy mark.
Guys, I would like to
Holler,
invite
holler.
you to the doorstep of Jessica, Lola51, and Stay Sorry. If you are a great guy and you don't want to have sex with them,
If you come to my doorstep,
and you just want to
Or at
know
least you were
them,
willing to wait that
right? Yeah.
if you're a great guy, don't want to have sex with me,
You don't
do
want
not
to
knock
touch
on my
them.
door.
You don't want to
You will
touch
be
them at
turned
all.
away.
You don't want to touch them at all. You just want their minds. Please comment below.
Shut up.
This is for you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate
Great.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Oh, man.